Hi, everybody. Welcome to the new year. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And this is English Digest, and today, as we get the new year rolling, we're going to be talking about something called punting. And there are various meanings to the word punting. If you're American, punting refers to an action in American football where you can't advance the ball any further, so you decide to give it over to the other team, and you punt the ball, which means you kick it while holding it in your hands. I guess you hold it in your hands and then you just kind of drop it into the air and then kick it. That is punting. But in this particular case, it refers to a kind of boating done in special kinds of boats, mainly in rivers in England.
Yeah, these boats are really long and they're shaped like rectangles. I've never even seen this before, Tom. Have you ever seen this on video, perhaps?
I probably have. If you go onto YouTube or something, you can find pictures of people punting in the various rivers in jolly old England. But we're actually going specifically to Cambridge, England, the site of a famous university. And I guess they do a lot of punting there. It's quite a tradition there. So if you go to England during nice weather, of course, you might be able to rent a boat and do some punting on the River Cam there.
Cool. We're going to go through that, take a look at some of these terms, learn a little bit more about punting. That's always fun to learn about new things and new sports. So we're going to get started, guys, by reading through today's article.
On the back of a shallow mahogany boat stands a man in a straw hat. He is using a long wooden pole to slowly move the boat through the calm water. The man in this tranquil scene is punting, a beloved tradition often practiced on the River Cam in England. Punting is the practice of traveling by long rectangular boats with flat bottoms. These vessels are propelled forward by 4 to 5 meter long poles rather than by motors or typical oars. Every year, people flock to the University of Cambridge to take a punting tour on the river bordering the famous site's grounds. Along the tour, they can delight in a number of historical landmarks, including the Mathematical Bridge and King's College Chapel. The centuries-old Mathematical Bridge is unique, not only for its simple wooden design, but also for the story behind its construction. Legend has it that it was designed by none other than Sir Isaac Newton, the famous English mathematician. It is said that Newton built it to demonstrate how force and gravity could be used to create a self-supporting structure, which wasn't held together by any nails or screws. Nonetheless, while this story sounds charming, it is far from possible. Newton passed away 22 years before the bridge was erected in 1749. Another popular site on the University of Cambridge's grounds is King's College Chapel, perhaps the finest example of late medieval English architecture in England. This impressive structure, which was finished in 1515, features colorful stained glass windows from the medieval period, as well as the largest fan vault in the world. From the river, the ornate building looks truly majestic, making it a special part of punting tours. With such attractions, it's no wonder that since the early 1920s, the River Cam has been an attractive place to travel by punt for romantic couples, families, tourist groups, and students alike. All right, everybody, the time has arrived for us to have some fun in our fun unit, and there are various ways to have fun, to get away from that phone of yours and get outside and get some fresh air and do some physical activity. If you're in England, you could check out punting, which we're talking about today. So I'll mention what punting is as our program continues, but hey, let's talk about the title here. Pretty punting in Cambridge. I did mention the punting in American football. I think it's also used in other sports. I think they also use it in rugby as well. Okay. But again, this refers specifically to boating in a river on those flat boats with these long poles.
Right. Not an oar. You know, that's the stick that has kind of the flat wood at the end. That's an oar. This is definitely using a different type of stick. We're calling it a pole. So if you take a look, you can compare two different types of boats. They kind of sound similar, except the shape is different, and that's a gondola that are used in Italy, and they're romantic. The sides of the boat come up a lot more on those. They also use an oar with those, but with punting, and that boat is actually called a punt, they use a pole. I just looked up in Wikipedia because I wanted to see what it looked like. It looks like fun. There seem to be a lot of young people sitting in the punt, punting down the river or up the river. So let's take a look. We've got a description here of a scene that we're setting. On the back of a shallow mahogany boat stands a man in a straw hat. So that's kind of our first look at this situation or the scene. The water's shallow, it's not very deep, and mahogany is a type of wood that I love. It's got a deep red color to it. We have some mahogany furniture in my house. That's one of my favorite types of woods.
Yeah, I think it's called a hongmu in Chinese. So, of course, it's very common here in Taiwan.
Yeah. So you've also got a man who's standing in the back, and he's wearing a straw hat, probably to shade his face from the sun. He's using a long wooden pole to slowly move the boat through the calm water. You're on a river. It's pretty peaceful. The water's not moving around a lot. That's good because if you take a look at this boat, it's pretty flat. So if you had a big storm coming, I would say it's not a good time to go punting because the water would get into the boat and you would sink.
Right, and I think it's probably more easy or easier to have a picnic on such a boat, to bring food and drinks and things like that. It's kind of hard to do that in a canoe because canoes are kind of, how would you describe it? They kind of taper down toward the bottom. It's not flat inside the boat, so it would probably be difficult to carry supplies in a canoe. But a punt sounds like the perfect boat for the rivers in England, and you can bring along food and drink and have a picnic there on the water. So we're describing a scene that you might see a man standing wearing a straw hat to protect himself from the hot sun. He's moving the boat through the water with a wooden pole. And the man in this tranquil scene is punting, a beloved tradition often practiced on the River Cam in England. Okay, I guess it's probably practiced on other rivers in England as well, but I guess it's especially popular on the River Cam in England. So yes, this is a tranquil scene. If something's tranquil, it's peaceful, there's no noise, there's no trouble. You'll probably find tranquil scenes in, say, Nantou County or something like that, away from the hustle and bustle of the cities.
That's right. Tom and I were talking about how we had never heard of the River Cam, but it's located in eastern England, and it's the main river that flows through Cambridge, which makes sense because you know, it's kind of got the Cambridge name in it, at least part of it. Although we say Cambridge with a long A, but with the River Cam, it's a short A, apple, and A, Cambridge. So they are on this pretty peaceful river in England, and they're enjoying themselves. It's a beloved tradition, if it's beloved, or beloved. Both pronunciations are correct. Beloved, beloved. It's something that is loved by many people. And so it's something people can just, you know, especially on a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon, relax, take a picnic, go out with your friends. It sounds really wonderful.
It certainly does. And, of course, punting is the practice of traveling by long rectangular boats with flat bottoms. Rectangular means the shape of a rectangle, which is long on two sides and short on the other ones. 长方形, as you say in Chinese. Rectangular is the adjective here. Rectangle is the shape. Rectangle, rectangular. Be careful of the accents there. They've got flat bottoms, and these vessels are propelled forward by 4 to 5 meter long poles rather than by motors or typical oars. So these are vessels. A vessel is any kind of device.
Container
that provides transportation in this particular case. So usually you see the word vessel when we talk about boats. Like a battleship is a kind of vessel.
Or we use vessel to talk about a container that holds liquid. So think about that too. There's sort of a container of sorts. This punt boat can hold people, and there's water all around. So they're propelled forward. If someone propels you or you are being propelled, it's like someone being pushed forward. So the vessels are pushed forward or propelled by these poles that are quite long, but they don't have any motors on the boat or typical oars, which you'll often see with dragon boat races. Those guys in those boats are using oars and not poles. I would prefer to have a little bit of a motor so I didn't have to work so hard. Maybe take a big, strong guy to, help you go down the river with those poles. Sounds like the river that they're in is not very deep.
Probably not. That's probably why they use these flat-bottom boats here. So I guess they're propelled or moved forward with those long poles. And every year people flock to the University of Cambridge to take a punting tour on the river bordering the famous site's grounds. So just like if you go to Bitan here in Taiwan, you can probably rent boats there. Just show up there. You might want to make a reservation, I suppose, if it's a busy time of the year. But you can probably rent the boats there rather than bringing your own. So if you flock somewhere, that means large numbers of people go in that direction. They go to that place. People flock to the Shilin night market on weekends, for example.
Oh, yeah. We also use flock as a measure word to talk about a group of birds. We'll often say a flock of seagulls. Or if you look up in the sky, sometimes you'll see birds flying together in a pattern. That's a flock of birds. So just imagine a lot of people going somewhere at the same time, and they want to go take a punting tour on the river bordering the famous site's grounds. We're talking about Cambridge University as being the famous site here. And the grounds of any sort of tourist attraction or location just means that's the property that particular thing is built on, the grounds. It doesn't include the buildings. It mostly just refers to, the trees and the grass and the grounds. And notice we put an S on that because it's a lot of property. If you haven't been to Cambridge or even Oxford, wow, I really encourage you to go. It's quite beautiful over there. Now, if you border something, guys, and notice we're using this as a verb, it means you come or you're located on the outside of something. All states in the U.S., countries have borders too. Taiwan's different because our little island nation is bordered by the ocean. So we don't have actual property that if you step over an imaginary line, it turns into another country. In Arizona, where I grew up, there's a part of the state where you literally can put one arm, one leg in 4 different states at the same time.
4 corners.
That's right.
Exactly. And do note again, as you've said, Stephanie, border here is being used as a verb. It can be used as a noun, though, like in the old song, and I've got such a long way to go to make it to the border of Mexico. But here, using it as a verb, I could say that the United States borders Mexico and Canada.
Yeah.
In other words, those 2 countries are next to the United States. So the river borders the campus of Cambridge University. It runs alongside it. And along the tour, they can delight in a number of historical landmarks, including the Mathematical Bridge and King's College Chapel. So if you delight in something, you enjoy that thing. Although, please be careful here, delight as a verb does need the preposition in, to delight in something. Tonight, I'd like to delight in a meal at a nice restaurant.
Or that is the verb use, but if you want to use it as a noun, you could just say, oh, what a delight today was, or maybe there's a really fun friend you have. She's such a delight. But yeah, you delight in something if you're using it as a verb. Now, historical landmarks can refer to buildings that are famous in history. They've been around quite a while. If you want to see some beautiful historical landmarks, you want to head on over to Europe. They have plenty of those, including 2 places that you may have heard of before. The Mathematical Bridge, which is new to me, and King's College Chapel, which I've been in, and it's kind of cool. A chapel is a building where usually Christian services, religious services are held. If you go to King's College Chapel, you are likely to hear a choir singing, so that's always a fun treat. We're going to move down to the second paragraph when we get back from a break, so stay tuned.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina. 我们今天来看一下文章第一个空格的句子写着 On the back of a shallow mahogany boat, blank one, a man in a straw hat. 在这个句子当中呢，我们会看到代表地方的副词片语呢摆在前面，从 on 开始一直到 boat， 指的呢是在这个前底红木船的后方呢，你会怎么样？这里是一个倒装句，真正的主词是后面的 a man in a straw hat。 搭配这样的主词，我们可以选择第一题的选项，答案 C stands 来搭配第三人称单数。接着第二个空格的句子，这里写着 These vessels are propelled forward by 4 to 5 meter long poles rather than by motors or blank 2 oars。 今天讲的主题呢，是指着撑篙来游剑桥，所以这些船只 vessels 可以指的是船只，之所以被往前推进， propel 其实就有向前推的意思，是借由呢这些4 to 5 meter long poles， 借着长达4到5尺的杆子 rather than 而不是透过马达或者是怎么样子的 or 也就是船桨的意思。我们来看一下第二题的4个选项。 A identical 相似的， B typical 典型的一般的， C logical 逻辑的， D political 政治的。撑篙往前进靠的不是马达，也不是我们典型所看到的船桨，所以搭配文意呢，第二题的标准答案我们就选择 B typical， 它靠着长达4到5公尺的杆子。第三个空格的句子写着 Along the tour, they can delight in blank 3 historical landmarks。 其实呢，透过撑篙来游剑桥的方式，你可以享受怎么样子的历史的地标。后面提到了有数学桥跟国王学院的礼拜堂。我们来看看这里的 historical landmarks 是属于复数的可数名词，所以搭配文法正确的答案，第三题应该选择 A a number of， 解释成为很多的或大量的意思。所以第三题符合文意跟文法，正确答案就选择 A a number of。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Let's continue, everybody. We talked about some of the famous historical landmarks on the campus of Cambridge University that you can delight in if you go punting on the River Cam in England. The centuries-old mathematical bridge is unique not only for its simple wooden design, but also for the story behind its construction. So this bridge is centuries old, it's hundreds of years old, and it's unique. Unique here just means special, one of a kind. You won't find another bridge like this anywhere in the world.
If you use this phrase, legend has it, it means there's some sort of story that's been passed down from generation to generation about something. It might be true. Oh, some parts of it might be true. Maybe most of it's not true. It's kind of fun to hear legends that are passed down. Legend has it, or people say that it was designed by none other than Sir Isaac Newton, who was the scientist who invented gravity, or at least pointed out that there is gravity on this planet. None other than is a phrase we use when we're kind of announcing a name that might be surprising to you, or maybe not. None other than, and you're waiting to hear what that name is. He's famous for sitting under an apple tree, and the apple tree falls on his head and hits him, and suddenly he understands gravity. So he was a famous English mathematician. If you're a guy or a lady who's into math, you would be a mathematician. That's quite a long title.
Mathematics is the study of numbers. The person is a mathematician, and mathematical is the adjective, the mathematical bridge. And it is said that Newton built it to demonstrate how force and gravity could be used to create a self-supporting structure which wasn't held together by any nails or screws. He wanted to show people this. He wanted to demonstrate this, how you can use force and gravity, which is what makes us stand up and stops us from floating off into space, gravity, and you can use these things to create this self-supporting structure. Although I suspect the Chinese were doing that centuries before Newton.
Maybe.
There's some kind of demonstration at the Palace Museum about these bridges that are from ancient Chinese history. I think he probably stole the idea from the Chinese, but in any case, this particular bridge is self-supporting. You don't need nails or screws. Just like those temples in Japan, they don't need screws or nails either.
Screw is something we use to build things with. It's short. It's got a sharp point. It's a metal pin, and you kind of twist it in a round direction. So it's kind of cool there if you want to go check that bridge out. Nonetheless, while this story sounds charming, it is far from possible, which just means it's impossible. Newton passed away 22 years before the bridge was erected in 1749. We use this verb erected when we talk about building some sort of large structure. So even though it sounds fun to have this legend, it's not true. If you take a look at the facts, we find out that poor Newton had already died before the bridge was built. So another popular site on the University of Cambridge's grounds is King's College Chapel. I bet a lot of people have heard of that place. It's famous and it's in a lot of movies if you're paying attention. Perhaps the finest example of late medieval English architecture in England. Architecture refers to the design of a building. You can't walk around a city or country and say, "Ooh, I like their architectures." No! Architecture is non-count, and it's the design, the art of designing and constructing buildings. It's a style that the building's in.
That's right. So, yes, indeed, you've got some examples there, or at least an example, one example of late medieval English architecture. King's College Chapel there, so check that out. This is an impressive structure which was finished in 1515 during the medieval era, during the Middle Ages. It features colorful stained glass windows from the medieval period, as well as the largest fan vault in the world. These are architectural terms here. Stained glass, of course, is colored glass that is famous in churches in Europe. It's quite striking, quite beautiful. And a fan vault is something inside a church, inside the main hall there. The pole goes up and then these various ribs kind of branch out from that. So check it out. It's quite stunning.
Sounds beautiful. We've got a fan vault that you can check out. I would suggest you just look that up because it's something that I haven't heard of before.
If we explain it, we'll just make it more confusing for you. Look at the picture.
Take a look at the picture. I just saw it in Wikipedia, so take a look there.
Sounds good.
From the river, the ornate building looks truly majestic. If something's ornate, it's very fancy. There's a lot of decoration on it. So you'll see a lot of the old buildings in Europe are pretty fancy, schmancy, I like to say. They did a lot of beautiful work on those buildings. They weren't just bricks and wood. They did lots of beautiful designs, and they look truly majestic. Majestic is a word we use when we're talking about something that's truly spectacular and maybe is good enough for a king or a queen. We call those people Your Majesty, as you see, making it a special part of punting tours. So if you do a punting tour, they're actually going to take you around to some of these buildings, which would be my favorite part.
Exactly. You can have a guided tour. And with such attractions, it's no wonder that since the early 1920s, the River Cam has been an attractive place to travel by punt for various people, including romantic couples, families, and tourist groups, and also students. Now, notice this sentence ends with the word alike. If you mention a whole bunch of different things and they all enjoy the same thing or they're all similar, you can put this word alike at the end. This policy is supported by the KMT and the DPP alike. They both support this policy, for example.
Right. So that's a trick to learn now. If you see alike, just know that the things that come before that word, whatever you're talking about, they're both involved. Right now, guys, we're going to turn the time over to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to wrap it up.
接着我们来看到第四个空格的句子。The centuries-old mathematical bridge is unique not only for its simple wooden design, but also for the story behind its blank for. 讲到数学桥呢，已经非常的历史悠久了。它独特的地方呢，不仅止于它简单的木头设计，还有它在后面的怎么样的故事。第四题 A. Immigration 移民。B. Determination 决心 C. Observation 观察 D construction 建造后面传说啊，它是由牛顿所建造的，所以在这个桥建造的故事呢也是相当独特的，所以第4题的标准答案我们就选择 D construction。但事实上呢，却不是牛顿所建造的。前面提到这个桥很特别，你看不到一个钉子或者是螺丝。第5个空格是一个转成词，后面的句子写着 While this story sounds charming, it is far from possible. 他说啊，尽管这个故事听起来很吸引人，但是 it is far from possible. 这个事件啊，却是不可能发生的，因为后面写着牛顿啊，在这个桥建立起来的22年前就已经过世了，所以前面提到有可能是他，但是后面提到这是不可能的事实。在这里文章的语气有了180度的大转变，在英文里面我们就可以选择 A 的选项 nonetheless 然而来承接前后的文意。第5题的正确答案我们就选择 A nonetheless。接着来看到第6个空格 This blank 6 structure, which was finished in 1515, features colorful stained glass windows from the medieval period as well as the largest fan vault in the world. 这里提到的呢是国王学院的礼拜堂，而这样的建筑物我们可以用怎么样子的形容词来修饰它呢？第6题 A efficient 有效率的， B dependent 依赖的， C impressive 令人印象深刻的， D persuasive 有说服力的。后面提到它的彩绘玻璃以及呢最大的扇形穹顶，可说它的建筑物是令人印象深刻的。搭配文意，第6题的标准答案就选择 C impressive。第7个空格的句子 From the river, the ornate building looks truly majestic. Blank 7 ate a special part of punting tours. 讲到从这个河上面看过去，这整个装饰华丽的建筑物呢，看起来相当的富丽堂皇。这里考考同学文法的分词构句，这样的事实也就造就它成为这整趟撑篙旅行的一个很特殊的部分。分词构句，所以第7题搭配文法，我们标准答案选择 A making。 OK， 以上就是今天的课文讲解，谢谢收听。
Okay, everybody, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. And this does sound like a very interesting way to pass the time. If you happen to be in Cambridge, England, go check out those punts or those boats and rent them and head out on the river and have yourself a gay time.
Sounds good.
I'm sure you'll remember it for the rest of your life. So thanks for joining us, and please join us again next time for another edition of our program. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.